Creativity and a learning mindset are essential to succeed. Learn how these innovators put these skills to use to become the best in their fields. Welcome to Innovators to Know, brought to you by IdeaMix.
Hello, welcome to IdeaMix Radio. Aarti Parmar is a coach and brand strategist. Not only does she have an extensive background in marketing and creative work, but she brings a unique spiritual angle to her work, guiding the organizations she works with to mindfully maximize their impact. Few fun facts about Aarti. The Karate Kid movie inspired her to become a black belt in Taekwondo. She's done a fire walk, believe it or not. And her personality is that of an optimistic empath, which we'll definitely explore further later in the episode. So stay with us. Aarti, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
So Aarti, I want to talk a little bit about your early career, which was such a influential time for you. You went on a 6-month journey that then turned into a 10-year journey of adventure and self-discovery in Malaysia. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, sure. At the age of 22, well, actually in my early 20s, I just always had this ambition to work and travel abroad. And I did my university and graduated and all of that. And I said to my parents, I want to travel and work abroad. So I'm going to go out for about 6 months to Far East Asia. So off I toddled along through a contact. So I ended up in Singapore, and from Singapore I then went to Malaysia. Whilst I was in Malaysia, I then ended up working with an ad agency, and through that ad agency, I then met some local business partners, and basically they were like, look, you do graphic design, this person does color separation, this person does printing. Why don't we set up a one-stop shop? At which point I was like, I'm actually really green in doing graphic design, and I've got zero experience of running a business. So, why would I do that? So basically they were like, look, there's dime a dozen graphic designers out there. If it doesn't work for you, we'll get somebody else in. And I just had one of those moments of like, oh yeah, I've got nothing to lose. I was early 20s. I had no sort of big responsibilities or anything. And I was like, yeah, if it doesn't work out, I've got nothing to lose. So I went in with that kind of mindset, and I pretty much kind of went straight into the deep end. Like when you're starting a business and you are knowingly starting a business, you start preparing yourself. Whereas this was a little bit different, and I kind of just went into it. And basically, it was very, very much lots of learning whilst I was doing.
Trial by fire, it sounds like, which has been a theme in your life.
Yes, yeah, it really actually has been. That 6 months ended up being 10 years. I completely wasn't expecting to be there for 10 years. The journey unfolded. We were doing some amazing, working with some amazing clients, which range from one-person businesses to global brands. And this was, a small little design printing kind of company, and we grew a team. I ended up going very quickly from graphic designer to doing business development, to being out there doing networking, to managing accounts for our clients and stuff like that, doing a bit of admin. It was a bit of everything, really.
The advantages of working at a startup, in a sense, right? Where you got to do a lot of different things so early in your career, which was so deeply educational. While if you'd been at a big place, you would have been much more siloed and, learning one thing.
Yep, absolutely. So, that 10-year journey in Malaysia, basically it ended up being a real kind of mind-opening experience, from the people that I met. I met people from all walks of life, from all around the world, from all different sort of positions, culture. It was just in every sort of way. It was, a mind-opening experience. And I met, as I mentioned before, I met a very special person to me, which was part of opening the mind even more, was my spiritual mentor. I should now say my late spiritual mentor. So, meeting him and
How did you meet him?
how did I meet him? Really good question. So, eating out in Malaysia is so cheap, right? So, basically, I was eating out breakfast, lunch, and dinner pretty much every day. So, I went to this cafe one morning and it was really packed. And I saw a group of elderly people sitting on the side, and there was one seat there. So I went over and I was like, do you mind if I sit down? And I was like, yeah, no, fine. And I was sitting there minding my own business, eating my breakfast, and I could hear their conversation. And it just made me smile. And what I didn't realize, I was smiling out loud, like I was, like, oh, that kind of thing. And they looked at me and they were like, what are you smiling at? And then I realized that I was like smiling out loud. I was like, do you know what? I'm just really enjoying your conversations. They were having really good banter first thing in the morning. None of them were complaining about life or this or that, and I was just really like intrigued by, what was making them so happy.
Yeah.
So then what ended up happening, I ended up meeting them for most mornings and for breakfast. So I became,
wonderful.
one of their friends, right?
Yeah.
And so one of who I then called, because he was an elderly, and I was just like, oh, uncle kind of thing, who I then called uncle. He was just like, oh, my friend's running this seminar on mind-to-mind communication, and he does all these talks on effective communication and philosophy of life and that kind of thing. And I was like, oh wow, that sounds really interesting. Yeah, I'd be well up for that. Interested. So bought my ticket, went for this event, and this uncle was, oh, I must introduce you to Master Alan. Master Alan was the person who was delivering the talks. And I was like, no, he's having lunch. Let him have lunch first. And he was like, no, I must introduce you. I was like, okay. So here I am now, very sort of timid and shy. And I went over to Master Alan. I was like, hi. And he was like, oh, hi, welcome. Are you enjoying this so far? I was like, yeah, I love it. And then, he's like, come and sit down. I was like, no, it's all right. You have your lunch. And basically that conversation, sitting around the table with him whilst he's having his lunch, and he's got his, this big event that had like nearly 1,000 people there. And there's me going, hi. He ended up talking to him and his wife, and they were like, oh, you know what? You must come round and stuff. So we exchanged numbers. And then thereafter, that was it. I kept going round. He used to host talks in his home. And that was it, just then it was like an open door invitation that I bought, created this really beautiful bond with him, his wife, and when his mentors, or as he would call his masters that would come from Tibet and Thailand, he'd be like, Aarti, they're coming over, you must come and meet them. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. So yeah, I was very, very fortunate to have my first taste, I guess, of, mindfulness and meditation in my 20s, and just be surrounded by some really profound conversations, which, are still landing now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I mean, what's so interesting about your story is you were so fortunate to meet these people in your 20s. Usually the 20s are sort of a time of really just scrambling around, trying to make sense of it all, right? And kind of keep it together along the way. And to be around these individuals, to be exposed, first of all, to the idea of mindset is important, intention is important, and then to be able to incorporate that for yourself at such an early stage, I mean, that is the mind-opening experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Even now when I talk about it, it's like, it just feels like a whole different lifetime ago, and it feels surreal. I got this opportunity, and I just feel so super grateful for it, in that sense.
Totally. So one of the things you've said is that it's really a brand that gives a logo meaning and not the other way around, right? And much of the work that you do, sort of building on the work that you did at the startup in Malaysia in your 20s, is that you help small companies and large ones and brands think about who they are, what they're really trying to convey, and how to maximize their impact. So tell us a little bit about, I think it's fascinating that you've tied mindset to branding and marketing effectively, right? Not a lot of people do that or think of it that way. Tell us a little bit about that connection and how you help your customers implement it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you actually, firstly, how that connection even came about, because when I did move back to England over 11 years ago, I worked in our family business for a short time, and then I ended up starting out my own business. And when I first went out, I was like, oh, I do design, branding, marketing, I do everything. And I was going out there, getting jobs I absolutely hated, going around in circles. I didn't really know what I stood for. I didn't, have any idea about my vision and what I was working towards. Nothing. It just felt like I was just chasing another sale to invoice because I had a service to sell. That's pretty much how it felt. I then accidentally came across coaching, and I had this epiphany moment of like, oh my goodness, firstly, everyone needs this in their life, in their business, and so do I. And the importance of really taking ownership and having alignment with something is far greater than having a logo and a website. Yes, you do need that later on in a business. So whilst I started my business, came across coaching, became a qualified personal performance coach. And in that time, I was also now coming across brand courses and stuff like that. And I eventually became a certified brand strategist. So now bringing these elements of taking ownership, having alignment, and the mindfulness practices and teachings that I've had, for me, I've gone from graphic designer to now to educate and empower business owners to mindfully define their brand, to use it with intent, joy, and impact. And why is that so important? Because I truly, truly believe that each and every one of us, through our products, through our services, can really make a difference in other people's lives through our brand. A business sells a product and a service. Around that business is an identity, and that identity is the brand that draws people to these products and services, to get associated, to advocate it, to connect with it, to associate in that sense. So it's really actually a powerful connection to have. And that's how bringing all of these elements together is why I do what I do now.
So the way you've explained it is perfect and intuitive, because I really believe that interactions that each of us, any of us, has with other people, but not just other people, with things, with brands, with ads we see, with products we buy, is a series of energy exchanges ultimately, right?
Absolutely.
Where we're expending energy on using something, learning something, getting to know somebody, or whatever. And as a result, it's so intuitive that the energy behind the brands that create the products that we use is then of paramount importance for those brands and companies to be effective ultimately.
Yeah. I always say, a brand is an energy. It is felt. It actually is felt. I'll give you all a test to do. Go over to somebody's social media page, go over to their website, feel what you feel. Actually look at it, read the words, look at the images, and then notice the feelings that you get. Some will be really dynamic and vibrant, and they'll reach out to you. Some, yes, might be very flat and dull. Is that intentional? Maybe not, but that is just how they are coming across. And just the way a human has energy, so does imagery, words, and everything else that where your touch points are for your brand also has an energy, even to a point to when you send an email that has energy in it as well.
Yeah, so true. So when we're back, we're going to have a quick primer on personality assessment. Stay with us. So Aarti, each of us has a personality type that's measurable and categorizable. That isn't to say that our personalities remain fixed over time. Of course, they evolve, but it also gives us, I find, really useful information about ourselves and our natural tendencies. So Myers-Briggs is a tool that you've used, that we extensively use in our coaching at IdeaMix. And you described that in Myers-Briggs terminology, you're an INFJ. For our listeners, the I stands for introvert, the N for intuitive, the F for feeling, the J for judging. Explain to our listeners what that means in terms of your mindset, how you deal with people, and how you live your life.
Gosh, yes. It's you know what? It's one of these things, right? So you do the personality test, and then you have your own sort of take on it through your own different experiences and beliefs and values that you have in life as well. So when I do these tests, I do take it with a little bit of pinch of salt, and also, right, okay, what do I want more of, and who do I need to become? I recognize that, okay, that, for example, the introvert side, it's really interesting because yesterday I was speaking to somebody and he was like, oh, you're really quite a mix of extrovert and introvert. And I was like, I mean, that's an interesting observation, because I actually do dial up my introvert, and then it dials down. So, I get asked to deliver a talk, and probably to that room, I'm an extrovert, and
you're a learned extrovert, basically,
yes,
right? Which many of us are.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly that. I will finish that talk and I'll be like, right, I need to sit by myself. I need to, just like chill again and just leave me alone, kind of thing.
yeah, regroup,
Yes,
because in the end, there's been that energy transfer where you've given a lot of yourself. And I think as introverts, we draw energy from the time that we spend on our own, right? Regrouping.
Definitely. That reset is so important. And I've recognized that more and more over time, because I was brought up in a family where we've got lots of cousins and family, and we're always getting together and that kind of thing. And I love that. I really, really love that. But I also, over time, have realized I also need time for me, and to, like you said, like we said, to reset in that sense.
Totally. So, Aarti, what role have coaching and mentorship played in your life?
Coming back actually to Master Alan, late Master Alan, I never realized. So when I used to go and sit with him and I'd be like, oh, Master, I've got this going on, or I've got this challenge, I'm not quite sure how to manage this, or, because I had a team of people, different people I was meeting. And he never gave me the answer. He never would give me the answer. It was like, and sometimes I'd be like, can you just stop talking in riddles and just tell me, kind of thing. It was only really when I came and, when I said I accidentally came across coaching and got an understanding of what coaching actually is, I was like, oh, Master Alan was actually coaching me along with, teaching me with his spiritual practices and mindfulness and stuff like that. But a big part of it was coaching.
Asking the right questions.
Asking the right questions, yes. Digging deeper, challenging me to think in different ways, to think of different, solutions, not just be this one way of, and I was just like, wow, how powerful. So his presence in my life, the coaching that, that where I became a qualified personal performance coach, that's been massive, influence in terms of who I am. And then just, I've always had an interest of personal development and that kind of thing. So those things there have also played a massive role in, understanding coaching. And, in terms of mentoring, I feel mentoring can happen from a whole variety of people. You may not just need that one particular mentor you go to. Mentoring can come from conversations. It can come from people that have been, in obviously in positions that you want to be in, but you haven't been in. So, just having conversations. What does it look like to grow a team? How do you manage? How do you manage yourself, your time? How did you do it? That kind of thing.
Yeah, totally makes sense. So last question for you, Aarti. In a way, you are providing to other people what Master Alan provided for you, coaching and mentorship. as whether it's brands and them thinking through the mindset and intention behind what they are really trying to convey and put out into the world, or whether it's individuals that you're working with to personally coach them along their journeys. Tell us a little bit about the impact that you feel you've had on your customers.
Yes, gosh. In fact, it was just a few days ago. I'll just share this little story with you, because a client was on a call with me and she said to me, she goes, look, Aarti, had I not had the conversation, had we not gone through your framework, your brand maximizer framework, I wouldn't have shown up as this person. She got asked to be on TV, and she was interviewed for her specialism in her expertise. And the before her, what she said was like, she goes, I would not have voiced up. I would have just sat there and just been a bit like, oh gosh, I'm not sure if I should say it, shouldn't say it. She goes, after doing this brand maximizer framework, she goes, although the others were on one page, she goes, I didn't feel afraid to voice out and actually share what I stand for. I said to her when she started working with me, she was like, I'm a little bit afraid to voice out and say what it is that, I stand for and that kind of thing. And I connected her with her own purpose. Why is she really doing what she's doing? And how, part of that is then, how are you going to embody this? And what does that look like in this bigger vision? So her connecting with that, embodying that, allowed her to go on to this TV show and be the woman that she's standing up for all the other millions of women that she wants to change the narrative for and navigate. So in terms of what impact does this have? It has impact on understanding the power that you have within you to make the difference that you want to make. And that comes from understanding why you want to make it and what's going to drive that will with any brand. What's going to actually build a meaningful, valued brand is the people behind it. And the people behind it need to believe what actions they need to take in order to get to that higher purpose, that purpose, that vision, that mission that they're trying to accomplish. And that comes from really having clarity of what that means for you as a business owner, as an organization. Because if that understanding isn't there, that impact isn't going to happen.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. Really, really lovely. I think we can probably talk for hours.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe wherever you listen and leave us a review. Find your ideal coach at www.theideamix.com. Special thanks to our producer, Martin Maluski, and singer-songwriter Doug Allen.